Here at the Fandome, we take the occasional shot at D&D. And while it's always meant to be light-hearted, we understand that sometimes we may rinse them a little too often, and in fairness, it isn't all totally deserved. At the end of the day, these guys did a phenomenal job of adapting George's world and story for us to enjoy when they had a proper source to draw from. Some would even say they improved certain aspects with their show-only additions. So yes, all this hate and vitriol they receive, some of it coming from us, isn't really fair, and D&D don't always deserve 100% of the blame. What they do deserve 100% of the blame for in its totality, however, is this travesty. And you seriously thought this would be some kind of apology video? They seriously thought this would be a video of us praising them, Tom. Yes, the Long Night, as depicted in the show, has got to be one of the worst narrative payoffs in the history of storytelling. Hyped up to be the greatest existential struggle within the story, where the fate of the very world rests on the living somehow being able to overcome the dead. A long period of darkness and hopeless despair, where our heroes fight a world-ending war against foes unlike that which they've seen before, culminating in an epic final clash in which the legendary Azor Ahai, no, the fucking real one, Tom, would rally what was left of the living and lead the charge, and the prophesized Song of Ice and Fire would finally come to its head. Was palmed off into a single episode that took place over a single night with a battle in which no one narratively important died, the big baddie was killed off in the most anticlimactic narrative blue balls-inducing display in a flawless execution taken straight from the Bryan Johnson school of subverting expectations, with the turd salad being seasoned with the piss vinaigrette of not being able to see a fucking thing on the screen. Is something happening here, Tom? I honestly couldn't tell you. But will it be this way in the books? I'm guessing not, and that's the idea that spawned today's video, guys. In this 3-part series, we're going to have a look at how the others might break through the wall in the books for part 1, and for part 2 and part 3, we figured we'd have a bit of fun, but no spoilers. Maybe comment down below what you think the follow-ups will be. This idea was sparked by one of our Discord members, Courageous, who then sparked a brilliant conversation in the server about this very topic. And everyone in there gave us far too many good ideas to draw inspiration from. And that can effectively serve as our Discord plug, Tom. The link is in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we've recently started a Patreon. I'm not one for e-begging, but if you do want to support us, the link is in the description. That's the intro done, Tom, and by the 7 it was a long one today, so let's get to the meat of the video. Courageous is probably very antsy for me to prove I'm not mad. Which I'm not, Tom. Those wanted posters are clearly referencing another Liam. So, the initial question that sparked the series in the first place. How will the others get past the wall in the books without Dany's dragon? So, we all know the others bypassed the wall in the show by utilizing an undead Viserion, whom the Night King shish kebabs with an ice spear. The odds of this being something D&D carried over from George's spoilers to them, however, is incredibly slim. The reason for this is in the wider lore. The 2 known instances we have of dragons and their riders trying to fly beyond the wall resulted in both dragons adamantly refusing to fly over it. Unless it's the contents of a feast, George does not generally waste words, and is quite particular with details, especially when it comes to magic. These events are there to tell us something, and as a betting man, I would suggest that it's telling us either 1. The magical wards within the wall have an effect on all magical creatures, including the mightiest of them, or 2. The dragons can sense the others and their power, and either fear or caution instinctually forces them not to cross the threshold into the other's domain, or 3. It's fucking cold and I'm not going, Mum and Dad. There's also the little hiccup of, as far as we are with the books, the Night King, as in the leader of the others, not to be confused with the Night's King, the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, has yet to be confirmed as a character. I do have to say though, I do think this guy will show his face in some capacity within the books, although he might have a different form. It's just personal opinion, but I do think the others have some kind of driving force behind them. They just seem a little too organized from what little we've seen to not have some sort of leadership structure. But that's my opinion. As far as we know, in the books, this guy doesn't exist. So, dragon shish kebab and necromancing said dragon in order to blast the wall down with magic ice fire just doesn't seem like it's on the cards for the books. So, what is? Now, before we start with the various ideas, let's just catch that guy quickly before he furiously types his nerd rage comment. Yes, we're well aware that the interaction with the others in the books is super limited, and there is all the chance the others don't even march on the wall or try to bring it down, and the book ending to the Long Night might be a bit more peaceful. But this video is clearly working with the warmongering assumption that those silver-skinned freaks want to come and get a piece.
This message brought to you by the Stannis Baratheon Party. Like life, hate death, fear the others. Vote Stannis.
No one knows either way at this point in the books, and everything is complete speculation when it comes to the intentions of the others. Maybe they march on the wall, maybe they don't. We're just speculating on the what if they want to come and kill us all angle. Sorry Tom, I have to get this in or some dirty other sympathizing hippie that guy will start blabbing about how the others might be a peaceful, gentle folk that use our dead as meat puppets that attack on sight. Yep, that totally communicates peaceful intentions to me. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. How might the others get past the wall? Let's start with one of the more popular ideas, and that is the Horn of Joramun. It's not addressed in the show, but in the books, Mance threatens the Night's Watch by stating he has found an artifact from an old legend known as the Horn of Joramun, otherwise known as the Horn of Winter, aka Tom's... Wait, Tom? I'm not saying that. The horn supposedly has the magical property of breaking the magical enchantments on the wall and bringing it down. How it does this is up for debate, though the predominant theory is it has something to do with causing earthquakes. Mel supposedly destroys this horn after Stannis goes Manus on Mance's army, but it's basically outright confirmed by Tormund that Mance was bluffing and they never found the real thing. So there's a chance it's still out there knocking around. Could the others find and use it? Maybe. I don't think it's likely though, at least in terms of they themselves using it. The others are an otherworldly force, and potentially the most powerful magical beings within the entire series and lore of Ice and Fire. For them to need a man-made MacGuffin to bring the wall down just doesn't really fit for me personally. There's also the slight hiccup of the horn, if it does indeed exist, likely being in the possession of Sam the Slayer, who is currently at the Citadel. And ain't no fucking way the others will cross Sam twice after he fucked one of them up. R.I.P. Puddles, taken from us too soon. I wouldn't rule this one out though if George employs it as yet another statement for how shitty humanity can be at times. There's a great deal of irony in Sam going to the Citadel to learn about how to defeat the others, only for the Maesters in their hubris to piece that broken horn back together, blow on it, and inadvertently bring the wall down, like the inquisitive fucking idiots they probably are. It has been said the others are akin to a force of nature, and are in some circles theorized to be an anthropomorphic representation of climate change. It does draw a little symmetry that man be the ones to bring about their own doom by unwittingly destroying the very thing that protects them through their own arrogance and ignorance. It's a little on the nose, but hey, maybe the wall is a massive representation of the ozone layer. I've heard crazier theories, I'll be honest. On to the next way they could get through, and this one is actually a little out there, but quite an interesting idea I've seen mentioned here and there. This has less to do with the others destroying the wall themselves, and more to do with the wall's magic weakening due to the integrity of the Night's Watch failing. The theory goes that with the building of the wall, which was supposedly a collaborative effort between Brandon the Builder, giants, and the Children of the Forest, that another pact was made with the children, but this time of the magical variety. Basically, the children work their wards and spells into the ice to create a magical barrier that repulses the others. But that barrier only remains strong as long as the wall is manned and the oaths of the Night's Watch are upheld by its members. And you can probably tell where I'm going with this. The Night's Watch has been getting smaller and steadily more corrupted over time due to it becoming viewed as superfluous, and also a way for many dickheads and some innocent people to avoid capital punishment. So the wall is full of wrong-uns, not to mention in a short space of time we've seen 2 mutinies and 2 Lord Commanders assassinated, on top of a fuck-ton of general oath-breaking. Assuming there's some truth to this, of course, the others in theory show up to the wall, the defenders expect it to repel them, and they simply break it with their ice magic, because the magical barrier has faded to the point where the wall is basically just a big piece of ice, something the others have complete magical mastery over, at least according to George. Again, there is also this narratively satisfying statement of humanity's apathy bringing about their own destruction due to not taking serious the threat of a force of nature that, as much as we know so far, cannot be bargained with or reasoned with. Unless you're this creepy dude or this godly man. Another way they may pass the wall is by simply going around it. It's been established the others bring the cold along with them wherever they go. There is the possibility that the cold their magic brings, combined with the arrival of winter, reaches a point of potency to which they can freeze the sea. After that, they simply walk around the wall. The only real issue with this idea is in the wall's magical protections. If the wall does indeed have magical wards in it, how far does that protection extend, and how does it work exactly? Is it like a brick wall in the sense the magical barrier is only present where the physical structure is, or is it more like a radio signal permeating from the source that gets weaker the further to the edge of the structure you get? Or is it some unknowable type of magic where no matter what, the others cannot stand anywhere on the other side of it? So many possibilities. However, if this is indeed the case and the wall can be circumnavigated by the others, like, seriously, they've never heard of or seen a boat. Seems a little dubious to me. While it might be incredibly funny to picture, it would also be deeply unsatisfying for many to see the others simply walk around it. The wall has almost been set up as a sort of Chekhov's gun. There's so much emphasis placed on its unbreakable nature that to not see it conquered would once again cause narrative blue balls like we got in the show.
Oh, so painful.
But seeing that scene does remind me of another idea people have about the others bypassing the wall, and that is regarding the yin to Dany's yang, ice dragons. This one gets a little wacky depending on how deep you want to go with it, but legends in the world of ice and fire do tell of ice dragons made of living ice. Who else has technology made out of magical ice? I wonder. Perhaps the others will use a dragon to break the wall, but not an undead dragon of Valyria. There's also the idea that the wall is housing a gigantic slumbering ice dragon, and the slightly crazier, as in batshit idea, that the wall itself is a gigantic slumbering ice dragon, and the way to break the magical protection of the wall is to simply wake the dragon up, and the wall comes tumbling down in its wake. As much as it's probably obvious I'm not a gigantic fan of this idea, it's not totally without precedent. There is some subtext in one of Jon's chapters, which personally I don't think is all that convincing, but what I do find a bit more interesting is how dragons are associated with the potency of magic, and one of the most prolific magic users in the series finds her magic becoming stronger at the wall. There's enough there for sure for it to escape the realms of tinfoil hat crackpot theory, and D&D were told how it actually happens by George. Maybe all George gave them was, "A dragon does it," in his notes to them. And them being the uncreative hacks they are, said,
Well, there's no other dragons in the series apart from, Dany, so it, must be one of them.
From a personal standpoint, though, I don't really like this idea at all. Not the concept of ice dragons, that's pretty cool, but them being the others' answer for dealing with the wall. As we keep saying, the others are supposed to be otherworldly, and it could just be me, but it feels a little cheap. I would much rather the others have a different answer for the wall and Dany's dragons than just copying Valyrian homework, but colouring in the fire blue to make it look a little different. It smacks of Deus Ex Machina, and it's honestly a little lazy. And while some might say George is being a little lazy with his progress, I mean... 13 fucking years, George! But one thing you can't say is that he is lazy with his storytelling. I mean, come on, it's why we want the books so fucking bad, and are willing to put up with the boring Bran bullshit, because we know it likely goes somewhere interesting. Ice dragons as a concept, cool, but ice dragons as the solution to the problem, no, it's not for us. Let us know in the comments how you feel about ice dragons, maybe we're being a bit too harsh. And before we wrap up, we have our own 2 cents, and that is... what if the wall simply doesn't work and never actually has done? Okay, hear me out, guys and girls. George knows he's at the point where no matter how hard he tries, no matter how creative he is, he will never be able to pay off the hype of the others marching on the wall.
It's in progress. I'm working on it.
There is nothing he can do that will satisfy the anticipation, and even really epic ideas are now at a point where they will feel anticlimactic. So, what if he leans into this anticlimactic nature? At this point, it might even be the most satisfying payoff. What if the others rock up to the wall, the defenders hold their ground anticipating that the wall's magic will do something to repel them, and what if nothing happens? They simply break the gates through conventional means at the cold tunnel and walk straight on through. 8,000 years of unshaken faith in something to protect you, and it turns out this whole time it's been 8,000 years of lies. That's one hell of a rug pull, and very in keeping with the tone of the series. Many forget that the wall was not built before or during the Long Night, but after the others had been pushed back to the lands of Always Winter. Because of this, the wall is actually completely untested as a defense mechanism. The only evidence that suggests it protects against the others is the fact that no one has seen the others in force since the Long Night. There is a famous story from a book or a movie or a show that's very apt for how I feel about the wall, but for the life of me, I can't remember the exact reference. So I'm going to paraphrase the story using myself and Tom, and I'm sure someone will let me know what I'm referencing in the comments. Let's say Lord Tom of House Fandome gets attacked randomly by a bear. Sir Liam, Knight of House Fandome, swoops in and kills said bear. Sir Liam then presents Lord Tom with a perfectly normal, non-magical coin, but tells Lord Tom that it will magically ward off bears. Lord Tom of House Fandome then lives the rest of his life without ever encountering another bear. He passes the coin to his son and tells the story of its supposedly magical properties. His son lives his life without ever encountering a bear either, and the cycle repeats itself through several generations, and voila! Through generations of stories reinforcing the non-causal association between the coin and bear encounters, as a causal association, you have a magic coin that keeps bears away. How do you know it keeps bears away? Because everyone who's ever held it has never encountered a bear, which you take as ironclad proof of the coin's magic. You can kind of apply the same logic to the wall. It's an impressive fortification, and it's pretty obvious that magic was involved in its making. But just because the others haven't attacked it or walked past it, doesn't mean they can't attack it and walk past it, if that makes sense. Maybe the others are just incredibly patient, and maybe they've been biding their time due to other factors. Maybe it's not the wall and its magic that actually concerned them, but the people who were manning it. You have to remember, the Night's Watch wasn't always the sorry state it's presented as in the mainline story. In the early days, they were a formidable force, and were able to consistently man 17 of the 19 castles on the wall, so they had decent manpower. And because of this, they were likely able to send out larger and more frequent ranging parties. But I suspect there was something different about these ranging parties that put fear into the others. And it wasn't their greater numbers, it was what they were carrying. The Early Watch knew what they were fighting, and the means with which to fight it. What defeated the others originally? Dragonglass, also known as obsidian. I'd bet a fair few gold dragons that the early members of the Watch never ventured beyond the wall without an obsidian weapon or two, and the others, fearing total extinction, chose to run and hide and bide their time. And so time passes. The others become more legend than reality, eventually making their way to myth status for most. And the Watch slowly becomes obsolete and dwindles in numbers. As they dwindle, their focus also switches from guarding against the others to keeping the wildlings in check. Different enemies require different approaches, and where there was once just weapons of obsidian, they are now accompanied by cold steel and iron. More time passes still, and the others get a little braver and venture out, encountering the now diminished rangers of the Watch. And what do they find? Steel and iron. Now, I can't say this with certainty, but let's assume some of these rangers don't run, but instead choose to fight using their steel weapons with no hint they understand the futility of what they are attempting. What does this tell the others? It tells them perhaps the most valuable piece of information of all.
You're fucked.
The living have forgotten about them, and the means with which to fight them. And with that, now is the time to strike once more. So maybe it was never actually the wall keeping the others away, but merely the living memory of them and how they are defeated. In this regard, the magic of the wall is simply how it serves as a very, very big reminder to the threat the others once posed, rather than a true magical barrier they can't pass. Basically a gigantic post-it note that says, "Hey, some icy fuckers nearly destroyed the known world, enough that we felt the need to build this impossibly large structure just to remind you all how big a threat they are. Use it to keep an eye out, will you lads? Cheers, your boy Bran." The wall could be the greatest piece of security theatre in the history of fiction, at least where the others are concerned anyway. Just an idea. Hell, we're not even discounting the possibility this thing was created by the others themselves and co-opted by the living. It is magical ice at the end of the day, something the others kind of own the copyright on. Perhaps it's unknowingly functioning as one great big trap. Not too dissimilar from the Citadel and mass relays of Mass Effect. Seriously, play that trilogy if you haven't, it's fucking awesome, as long as you turn it off 15 minutes before the ending. Now, some people may attempt to refute this idea with the statement from Cold Hands about not being able to pass the wall as proof that Whites and the others can't pass it. Only this has already been disproven in the very first book when the reanimated O4 attacks Jeor Mormont. This takes place on the other side of the wall, and it's suggested that the White acts with intelligence due to it prioritizing the primary target of the Night's Watch, that being the Lord Commander. So it's not feral and very likely working under direction from its masters. So if the other's magic can penetrate past the wall without it being broken, I can't see any reason why the others themselves can't simply walk past it. Who knows though? Time will of course tell. I've nearly got enough sacrifices to offer the Lord of Light in exchange for opening a portal to an alternative dimension where HBO doesn't exist, and Mr. Martin actually completed the series several years ago. I'm not mad, Tom. I'm not mad. It will work. Just keep posting the help wanted ads on Craigslist and Gumtree and bringing people over to our Discord server. Was that? No, it's audio. They can't see me doing the air quotes gesture. Have them forward. And that's our take. I'm sure you guys will have your own thoughts and theories on how the others might breach the wall in the books, and I'm sure you'll have no problem telling us what they are.